Listeners are always sharing some really interesting stuff with us. And recently, we've gotten a lot of requests to dig into the connection between how often you go to the bathroom, for a bowel movement, and how it relates to your overall health. You sent over some fascinating scientific articles on this, and today we are going to really break them down and get to the heart of the matter.
So we're going to be diving into the relationship between bowel movement frequency, or BMF, and various aspects of health, specifically pulling from a study that focused on healthy adults. This study aimed to connect the dots between how often someone has a bowel movement and things like what's going on at a molecular level, like metabolites in their blood and the composition of their gut bacteria, but also how this all ties into lifestyle factors and those early signs of chronic diseases, particularly chronic kidney disease. It's all about seeing the bigger picture and what we can learn from folks who are generally considered healthy, even before any disease might develop.
It sounds like this study really went deep. So before we jump into all the findings, can we clarify how they actually defined bowel movement frequency in the study? I mean, what's considered normal and what falls outside of that range?
They broke it down into 4 categories: constipation, low normal, high normal, and diarrhea. Constipation was defined as having 2 or fewer bowel movements per week. Low normal was 3 to 6 times a week. High normal, which they used as their reference point, was 1 to 3 bowel movements per day. And as you might expect, diarrhea was classified as having 4 or more bowel movements per day.
So high normal is what they considered the sweet spot, so to speak.
That's right.
Interesting. Now, when they looked at all these healthy adults, did certain types of people tend to fall into specific BMF categories?
Definitely. They found some clear trends. For instance, women, people with lower BMIs, and younger individuals generally had lower bowel movement frequencies. In fact, when they dug a bit deeper, age, gender, BMI, and even genetic ancestry, those were independent factors, all significantly associated with how often someone went to the bathroom.
Fascinating. So it's not just about what you eat or your lifestyle. Our genes might play a role too.
Seems like it.
Okay, so let's move on to the gut microbiome. I mean, that's such a hot topic these days. What did this study reveal about the link between our gut bacteria and how often we poop?
The study showed that folks who were constipated actually had a lower richness and diversity of bacteria in their gut compared to those in the high normal group. But interestingly enough, they had greater evenness in their gut bacteria. So while they had fewer types of bacteria overall, the distribution of those bacteria was more balanced.
And just to be sure I'm following, is that considered a good thing or a bad thing for their gut health?
It's not entirely clear-cut. Some level of diversity is generally seen as beneficial, but it's really about the specific types of bacteria present. For instance, they found that several types of bacteria, like just to give you a few examples, Rumina 9, Ruminococcaceae UCG005, and Ruminococcaceae NK4A1214 group, were more abundant in those dealing with constipation. And on the flip side, they saw less of Lactospiraceae ND3007 group, Lactospiraceae UCG004, Bacteroids, Lactoclostridium, and Veilonella in this group. Now, those last few especially are important because they play a key role in producing short-chain fatty acids, which are really crucial for gut health and overall well-being.
So a shift in the types of bacteria and possibly not enough of the good ones could be contributing to constipation.
That's the idea.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I know the study also delved into blood metabolites. Those are basically substances in our blood that can give us clues about what's going on in our bodies, right? What connections did they find there?
They found that a whole bunch of metabolites were significantly associated with BMF, especially when comparing the low normal and high normal groups. Interestingly, the low normal BMF group, those folks had higher levels of a few specific metabolites: p-cresol sulfate, phenylacetylglutamine, p-cresol glucuronide, and 3-indoxyl sulfate. Now, these are kind of interesting because they're produced by bacteria in the gut and have been linked to the progression of chronic kidney disease. In other words, they might be acting as toxins, and of those, the 3-indoxyl sulfate stood out because it was the only one associated with both BMF and estimated glomerular filtration rate, which is a key measure of how well your kidneys are functioning.
So lower BMF and certain gut-derived metabolites could be red flags for kidney health.
It's certainly something to keep an eye on.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The study also looked at standard clinical blood tests, right? Like the kind you'd get at the regular checkup. Anything noteworthy there?
You bet. They found that 21 blood chemistry markers were associated with diarrhea, including things like omega-6 fatty acids, homocysteine, total protein, and bilirubin. However, for the low normal BMF category, only one marker stood out: the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. And it's actually quite intriguing that within this healthy population, markers typically associated with kidney disease risk tended to be higher in those with lower BMFs, while markers potentially linked to liver disease risk were more often higher in individuals with higher BMFs. It really highlights how important it is to look at the whole picture when assessing someone's health, considering both the frequency and what else is going on in their blood work.
Right, it's not just about the number on the scale.
Exactly.
Now, all of this is super interesting,
Huh.
but let's not forget about the impact of lifestyle. Did the study shed any light on how our daily habits might relate to our BMF?
Absolutely. For starters, those in the low normal BMF group, they tended to eat fewer fruits and vegetables and snacked more frequently. And it probably won't surprise you, but people who reported constipation, well, they also reported having more difficulty actually going to the bathroom. And those with diarrhea said they experienced diarrhea more often. It's pretty straightforward, but it underscores how important it is to listen to your body and pay attention to how different foods and habits might be affecting you.
Makes perfect sense. Now, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the kidney function connection because that seems really important. Can you remind us what the key takeaway was there?
Sure. The study found that higher levels of those two metabolites we talked about earlier, X1, 2-low-216, and 3-indoxyl sulfate, were associated with lower eGFR, that's the estimated glomerular filtration rate, a measure of kidney function even in healthy participants. And what's even more compelling is that they did a causal mediation analysis, which basically suggests that the link between lower BMF and reduced kidney function might be partly because of the buildup of 3-indoxyl sulfate. It's like that microbial toxin could be a precursor to potential kidney issues down the road.
So, taking care of our gut health could potentially help protect our kidneys in the long run.
It's definitely a promising area of research, and these findings suggest to something worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. So, for our listeners out there, the bottom line here is that having either too few or too many bowel movements, anything outside of that high normal range we discussed, is linked to changes in your gut bacteria and the production of metabolites that could potentially harm your health, especially your kidneys. And because this study focused on people who were generally healthy, it suggests that managing your BMF, maybe by increasing your fiber intake through fruits, vegetables, and other healthy choices, and just generally taking care of your gut, could be a powerful way to safeguard your health proactively.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Given all these intricate connections between our digestive habits and our overall health, even before any noticeable problems arise, how might paying closer attention to your gut provide valuable insights into your long-term health journey? And what avenues might be worth exploring to better understand your own gut organ axis? Food for thought, right? And on that note, we'll wrap up for today. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we look forward to diving into more fascinating health topics with you soon.
Until next time.
Bye for now.